You've all read a lot of headlines over the years about Cuba. 1959 was the July 26th revolution. Easy for me to remember because July 26th is my birthday. Che Guevara became famous as the military leader that helped Castro bring about a coup in which he seized power in Cuba, ousted Batista. Castro nationalized the Cuban companies. That's a nice way of saying he stole them. He turned Coca-Cola, Texaco, Exxon, all just taken from the United States and became Cuban companies. They kicked out people who had homes that they'd worked hard to afford and took the homes and kicked them out. Many of them are now, and their descendants are in Miami, and that is the cause of a lot of the unhappiness there. He turned to Russia, which was then our avowed enemy. So we had a communist nation 90 miles away from the United States. We attempted to do something. Eisenhower came up with a plan that became known as Bay of Pigs, and it was implemented by Kennedy. It was very important if you're going to secretly invade a country to keep it secret. But everybody who was going to go down there had a relative in Cuba, whatever. Everybody in Miami knew about the Bay of Pigs coming. Everybody in Cuba knew that it was coming. So they were ready, and it was a great loss and humiliation for the United States. I think all of us are old enough to remember the Cuban Missile Crisis, where Castro turned to Russia, and Russia was going to put missiles 90 miles from Florida. And it was almost the cause of World War III. But Russia blinked, and they took the missiles away. You may have also read about the Mariel boat lift, which was sort of interesting, because the Cubans, Castro announced anybody who wants to leave, sure, can leave. Well, 125,000 people immediately did, and that was humiliating to them. As they depicted their place as a paradise nobody would want to leave from. So they got their revenge by filling the boats. They emptied the jails, they emptied the mental institutions, and they put those people also on the boats so that we ended up with them in the United States. Now, this year, as you know, basically, Obama lifted the embargo that prevented people from traveling to Cuba. It has to be a cultural trip. If you can't just get on a plane and fly to Cuba. You can be at Canada or Mexico. But Paul and I wanted to know what is going on there, so we just came back from Cuba. You can't shop there except for T-shirts. Sorry about that. And here's a few things that you don't read about in the headlines. How is communism or socialism working out for them? Now, this is a supposed socialist paradise. People are all supposed to be equal. It's nonsense, absolute nonsense. There's at least two classes, and the people in the upper classes have access to what's called gifts. Gifts are tips or bribes. The average income is $20 to $30 a month. Since so much is subsidized in a nationalistic country like this, they don't have huge expenses, but the poor people need more than $20 to $30 a month. Even a policeman asked a member of our group for $1, saying he was hungry. Food is very expensive there, partially because of the embargo that we have instituted. How does universal health care work there? By the way, women have complete unrestricted access to abortions. Well, doctors only get $60 a month. So if you want better health care, here come the gifts. And I spoke to someone who wanted, his wife was pregnant, and he wanted to have the best doctor, the best hospital, and that required a gift of $100, which, if you're making $20 a month, which he's not, but it could be a very serious problem. I said to him, what would happen if you didn't give the $100 to the hospital and the doctor? He said, my wife would have screamed for 12 hours. Now, people get free land, and that would be great, except for the fact that the land is probably not, it's not going to be in the city, it's going to be in the countryside. And someone may find themselves 2 hours away from work each day, and there's no good public transportation. Also, everybody wants to be in the city. Nobody wants to be in a farm. How about universal education? Well, the people I spoke to, and I spoke to a lot of people about all these things, they said that the classes were so large that their kids couldn't get an education and that they had to hire private tutors afterwards. If a person wants to buy an old car, it could cost $40,000. A little house, even more. What upset me, though, was that I heard that on every block there's a house that says CDR, and that is the secret police. And they make sure that people are not speaking against them, and basically it's like North Korea. It's not quite that bad, but they don't have international news there. They don't have CNN or you know, news to watch on TV. No newspapers from Miami. What killed me for a week is there was no internet. They are starting to get it a little bit, but it's very, very expensive, and it's very slow, so that somebody could take an hour to try and get one download. I asked one of the people that I talked to, I said, why don't the people rise up and complain so that they can get a better living? He said, because the government has the guns. Now, what's it like there other than politically? It's the largest island in the Caribbean. By the way, people don't realize this, but there's 4,100 little islands there. It's an archipelago, 11 million people. Some places are very, very modern. Other places, like Havana, is timeless decrepitude. They're calling it crumbling colonialism because every day one building collapses. The cars, yes, just like that. And they call them Yank tanks. And they're absolutely wonderful. I took a taxi in a 1952 Cadillac convertible, pink and white. It was fabulous. And the Cadillac was next to a horse and carriage. And someone told me that their car was next to a goat and carriage. How's the food? Not so hot, literally, because they don't have hot sauces and they don't have salt and pepper and those things that cost a lot of money. Still, it is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful place. is a fascinating country. It is a fantastic trip. Less than 100 miles away, less than 1 hour flying time, is something that in many ways is better than Europe, which we travel so far to get to. Parts are just incredibly beautiful. It's great sightseeing, day or night, wonderful culture, wonderful spirit, terrific music. How do you get there? Well, you have to go with a group. And now they're opening it up to cruise lines. You read about the Fathom, that the big cruise ship that went. We went on the only cruise ship in Cuba. It's called Variety Cruises. It's a mega yacht, 25 cabins. You fly to Miami, and then you sail to the different islands. And it was absolutely wonderful. What is the future for Cuba right now? Well, after Russia collapsed in 1991, and they were subsidizing everything, things became very bad. Little bit better right now because Venezuela has been helping them. But if you read the headlines, you know that Venezuela is in a lot of trouble. And it looks like they're going to go into another recession or depression. So tourism right now is probably the only thing that can save them. But there's only 11,000 hotel rooms in all of Havana. The cruises, the water is too shallow for them to have a lot of cruise ships. So even so, I think that it's going in this direction, and 5 years from now, you will read a headline that says 5 millionth American tourist arrives in Cuba, and it could be you. Now, before I quit, I wanted to tell you 10 interesting things that you probably didn't see in headlines about Cuba. The first is the Hotel Nacional in Havana is modeled after the Breakers, and it was the site back in the 50s of the largest mafia convention in North America. And in order to hide the fact that the mafia was meeting, they all said that they were going there to hear Frank Sinatra sing, and he sang, and they were all there. Those of you, anybody here see the movie Buena Vista Social Club? Okay, yeah, good. It's great. Well, the place is still there, and you can go there. We went there one evening, and the people in the movie are so old that you get to watch a saxophone player who's at about 90, and the drummer's about 95, but it's exciting. The tobacco factory. We went to a tobacco factory, and I thought it was interesting that here's a very repetitive, boring job for the people, but they have people come in the afternoons and read to the workers to keep them occupied, and it may be romances and history, so I thought that was good. The beaches are spectacular. My favorite was Maria La Gorda, which, by the way, is named after a 400-pound prostitute who lived there. I figure at 400 pounds, she just couldn't turn back in the other way and decided to make some money out of the whole thing. So, careful ever saying that you're going to eat a papaya there, because that's a slang for female anatomy. And you know that in America, we say somebody is a peach. There they say she's a mango. Don't blow your nose in public. Very finically, there's considered incredibly rude. World-famous cigars of Cuba. Before the embargo, Kennedy ordered 1,200 of them. There have been 600 attempts to kill Castro, including exploding cigars. My favorite was a product like Nair, and they wanted him to accidentally use it and lose his iconic beard, and the people would be less enamored of him, thinking he wasn't that masculine. They've developed terrific medical products there, including, because they have to, because they couldn't, get them from here. They've actually developed the lung cancer vaccine, the only one. They told me that they had developed a cure for cancer. They gave me the name. I did some research. It didn't work out. Anyway, I've told you a little of what's behind the headlines. I want to encourage you all to go yourself. It is a fantastic thing, and get there before there are 5 million tourists. Thank you.
Lo canto en ven y moré. Como suena tan bonito, yo lo traigo para usted. Oye que con cantores se baila y se goza como es.